What's going on? What's going on? It's been a minute. I'm about to hop into the gym. Been real busy. But before that, let me just make a quick video. Now, I just saw a video that somebody made, and they're talking about how Ennis versus Terrence Crawford is unrealistic, or that it's fake news, and that it's not gonna happen. It can't happen. I guess whatever. Um, and like due to the fact that Ennis, like, his quote focus right now is on facing Earl Spence Jr., and the fact that Terrence Crawford, his focus right now is on facing quote Errol Spence Jr., and that's the fight that's going to be, I guess, that they're looking at making next between those two individuals. And so a fight between Ennis and Terrence Crawford, it couldn't happen on BLK Prime. And I'm going to have to call that's BS. The fight 100% can be made on BLK Prime. The first thing is that when it comes to Ennis, we do know that he has a contract right now with Showtime, where he fights on Showtime. But Espinoza has made it very clear. It's like, yes, he has a deal with us to fight on Showtime, but he gets an opportunity like that, we're not going to hold his career back. So if he has a great opportunity where he can go to any other network, to make a big fight happen, we're not going to, it's cool. He can go do that. So if he got put into a position where he had a title shot against somebody like a Terrence Crawford, yes, he would go to BLK Prime and he would fight Terrence Crawford on BLK Prime. That's a fight that is 100% makeable and 100% doable, and it 100% can happen next. Period. So that aspect of it, you can scratch that off. As far as Ennis, his focus being on Earl Spence, that's also BS. Ennis' whole focus has been on getting a belt. He's been talking about facing Earl Spence, but he's also been talking about facing Terrence Crawford. The situation, like how this all come about, this all came about due to the fact that Ennis did an interview. And in the interview, he says it, hey, yes, I would fight Terrence Crawford. I will go to BLK Prime in a heartbeat, and I will fight Terrence Crawford. Even though I'm with Showtime, I will go there if that opportunity is available for me. So it's a fight that he wants and he's willing to do. So the question is pretty much is, what does Terrence Crawford want to do? Because excuses of, I can't deal with Showtime, or I can't deal with PBC, or whatever it is, those things aren't there. Ennis, yes, he fights in a lot of PBC cards, but he's not a PBC fighter. He works with Cam Duncan, and actually that's the same promoter that used to promote Terrence Crawford, or manager, whatever he is. So he also knows this particular individual, and he's, and so there's no PBC involvement whatsoever when it comes to that, And so the question becomes, what is Terrence Crawford doing? Because realistically, due to the fact that we had Todd DeBuff, I guess, with the request from Earl Spence, the fact that they sent a request to the WBA for them to allow Earl Spence to face Keith Thurman first, because there was a question if it was the WBC or the WBA that had next up. According to WBA, it was them. WBC was saying it was them. But in order to keep no kind of issues and problems from arising, they asked and said, hey, is this cool for us to do this? And they said, yeah, that's cool. So you go ahead, you face your WBC mandatory. Then after that, you have to face your WBA mandatory, which is going to be the Ortiz versus Stanionis winner. So if, like, let's say later on they would do a Terrence Crawford fight, they would have to give him step aside money. The Keith Thurman versus Earl Spence fight has already been called. It's already been mandated by the WBC as well. I understand that just because they haven't announced the fight, it doesn't mean the fight's not done. When it comes to PBC, what they do is they'll announce fights in the order that they're going to come, and they'll put the tickets out and give it a little bit of time for people to purchase up those tickets before then a new fight it pops up. And also, so you just have that time where you can just be talking about that fight. Like Martin, he had his fight. First, they announced it, they put the tickets on sale, they had a little time to breathe. After they had a little time to breathe, then the Gervonta Tank Davis fight got announced. They put that on there, they put the tickets for sale, they let that give a little time to breathe. Then after that, they announced the Charlo versus whatever the hell that dude's name is. Kazoo, as he calls him. They're fighting next. their tickets just got put on sale. After this, what's going to happen is, if Errol Spence is fighting in February, because I don't know anymore because he had that car accident. So I don't know. But if he can still, do the February date, then yes. And he is going to fight Keith Thurman, then they would probably be announcing that in a week or two. But I don't know because of that car accident. He got bruised up or whatever it is. He didn't get hurt, but you get into a car accident like that, you're still going to get bruised up. You're still going to have those muscles tighten up. You're probably still going to need like 2 weeks or so to kind of loosen everything up. So it might be a thing where that fight's pushed back a little bit. But I could see that fight, if it's happening next, being announced in the next probably 2 weeks or so. And then they'll put those tickets up. And then the next, after that, whenever Benavidez and Caleb Plant are fighting, then obviously that fight was already announced. But then they'll put the date up, and then they'll put the tickets sales up and all that other stuff. And they'll be kind of the focus will be on that fight. And then after that, you'll hear the Wilder versus Andy Ruiz. If that fight's happening, you'll hear that'll get announced, and so on. That's how it pretty much it goes. And even if he was negotiating with him, we saw what happened last time. The guy was put into a space where he had a final draft, he had a final contract in his hand with all the changes that he wanted. He still went another way. He still was setting up another fight the whole entire time without letting PBC knows. So realistically, it's like, and then when it comes to after his fight was done, what about the energy after the fight tells you that he wants that fight? He wasn't like, yeah, I'll fight Errol Spence next. I'm ready to do this, but that's not what he said. That's not what he said at all. He was like, well, I am a free agent, and I just want to make all the big fights happen. That's the words that came out of his mouth. There was nothing about that. The way he was speaking would say, yeah, he wants to fight Errol Spence next. There's nothing about it whatsoever. You see the difference, like with Errol Spence after his fight with Ugas. It was very clear who that man wanted next. Very clear. It was very clear about that he wanted to do. And this man has made it clear, hey, fights like this, sometimes for weeks he's been saying, sometimes fights like this just don't happen. It's just going to go down as one of those great fights that didn't happen. This is the way he's been talking. This is the way he's been talking. And if the reason was of him not having that particular fight was, quote, because of the date, all right, cool. He'd be like, yeah, just send me that contract. I'll sign it. Let's go. That's it. There would be nothing to negotiate, nothing to talk about. Just let's go. So, but that's not necessarily the case. So if you really want to still do a big fight, if you still want to do a fight, because supposedly you'll face anybody, you'll fight anybody, supposedly. If that's the case, then of makeable fights, this is the biggest fight that you can do, would be against Jaron Ennis, and you're put into a position where you don't have to leave your partners that you're working with. You don't have to leave the situation that you're with. If you feel more comfortable working in that particular situation, you can go fight. You can go ahead and you can fight Jaron Ennis. Errol Spence isn't going to BLK Prime. He's not going over there. There is nothing whatsoever about the promotion of that fight that we saw that would make any top tier fighter want to go over there. None. Absolutely, there's nothing. What about that promotion would make Errol Spence want to go there? They didn't have a real press conference to announce the fight. I don't think either fighter saw each other until fight week. Avanesian was training in Terrence Crawford's gym. He was training in Terrence Crawford's gym for that week, getting ready for the fight. It's ridiculous. The undercard was complete trash. You had no shoulder programming whatsoever. They didn't even have promotional things going on their own like their YouTubes and stuff like that. They didn't even have anything going on over there. Nothing. It was all on just YouTube channels. That's pretty much all that was happening. Nothing really was on that site until the week of the fight. So and then Terrence Crawford, he went on a promotional, tour talking about Errol Spence, not even promoting his own fight. So just looking at all that, there's nothing about the way that they handle that would make you believe they could handle a fight that's 1/4 the level of Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford. Nothing. That promotion was complete hot garbage. Trash. Complete trash. No disrespect, but to anybody, that's what it was. They should have done a much better job than that. And you had examples. Like you were able to look at Showtime and see how they promote fights. You would look at ESPN, see how, and they don't really promote fights like that, but you can even do at least a level of that they do. You can look at the Zone even. Like you have different places where you can look, but you do have the gold standard, which is Showtime, where you see what they do when it comes to somebody like a Gervonta Tank Davis fight. They had an actual press conference where all the fighters, including the undercard, were all there. You know, where they had the press there, where they were able to talk, they were able to give out information, everything. They were able to do everything right there. We already had that. There's going to be shoulder programming that's going to happen. There's going to be promotion that's going to happen. That's not only just on Twitter. You're going to see it on YouTube. You're going to see it on Fox. You're going to see it on ESPN. You're going to see it on NBC, CBS. You're going to see the promotion of that fight everywhere. They know how to promote fights. You know? They know how to promote fights. So they could have taken, something from that and gave us something of that nature. Something. But they didn't do it. We call this pretty much the bare minimum is what they did. The absolute bare minimum. So realistically, just looking at everything, that fight, it's not going to happen. So if that's not going to happen, it becomes, Terrence Crawford, what are you going to do? Are you going to go fight someone that people really want to, see you fight? Or are you going to go back and fight another Avanesian? Fight another mid-level fighter that no one is even talking about before you sign the dotted line to fight them? That's the question. And unfortunately, I believe the answer is going to be he won't be fighting Jerron Ennis. He won't be fighting Earl Spence. What he'll be fighting is some fighter that we haven't heard of whatsoever. Somebody probably has some kind of connection to Kinahan or to BT Sport, not BT Sports, whatever that that dude is. Not Eddie Hearn, but the other guy. I forget his name. Avanesian's manager, promoter. I forget his name, but Frank Warren. Probably somebody with some kind of connection to Frank Warren, and that's probably who he'll be fighting next. And a fight that absolutely no one could care ish about. But it is what it is. Hopefully I'm wrong, like I always say. I would love to be wrong. I would love to see Earl Spence versus Terrence Crawford. That's a fight that I want to see. That's a fight that everybody wants to see. But unfortunately, I don't think we'll be getting it at all. Like, subscribe, share. I'm out.